Glenn Lessig,
Here.
George McCoy,
Present.
David Fortin,
Here.
David Richardson,
Here.
Mark Shamber.
Absent. Okay, next order of business is to seek an alternate, excuse me, seek an alternate if necessary, and that's not necessary. Approve the minutes of the March 3rd, 2015 regular meeting. Those are in front of you. Got them today. We weren't sure if they were going to be ready, but thank you, Kristen.
You're welcome.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second. Any discussion? All right, there's one item that needs to be corrected. Under old business, item number 7, item B, on the matching funds for Camp Nahaco, the amount should be $10,000, not $5,000.
No comments. We really don't have much time to dig through them. Plus, someone else has.
Unless anyone else has any questions or whatever, we have a motion to accept them with the correction made. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. All right, move on to the Board of Selectmen's budget capital plan presentation. Mr. Walker.
All right, good evening. All right, so we're gonna look at this year's general government. So, again, this year we were advised that there are limited resources and we should take a zero-based approach to preparing the budget. You'll see, we didn't come out with zero, but we did do what we could to limit what we're asking for. The proposed fiscal year 2015-2016 general government budget request is $5,480,726. That proposed budget is an increase of $127,512 over last year. This proposed budget is still $98,287 less than the 08-09 budget. I only put that in there because those are the budgets that I've done so far. Yes.
Should be noted that $557,000 of that difference is in debt service.
Well, I'll show that. Um, 2014-2015 budget, $5,353,214. Proposed budget is $5,480,726. It's an increase of $127,512, and that's a 2.38% increase. Again, this is the total, this is a graphical showing of how the budget has been, total budget over the last 8 years. So in this budget, what it's showing is the total budget, the general government operations budget, which is just the total budget minus the redemption of debt. And as you can see, the redemption of debt has dropped from over $1,067,445 to where it is now at $498,128. So the difference, and that's how actually we've been able to stay within the budget. Our expenses, like everybody else's in the world, continue to rise every year, and that's helped enable us to keep it within parameters it is now. So again, our proposed budget is $5,480,726. Redemption of debt, $498,128, which gives us the operations budget of $4,982,598. The budget increased by $471,090 from that 08-09 budget, the operations part of it, and the redemption of debt is dropped. So that's a $58,886 average increase per fiscal year, or a 10.44% increase since 08-09, or a 1.31% increase per fiscal year. So we had budget increases in this budget. One of the things that increased were wages. This is all our wages included, over all departments, $40,291. And that's the assessor's budget. There's a contractual services line item, and that's increased by $6,977. This is a program that we were getting for nothing through a grant, which now the grant has run out, so now if we want to have it, we have to pay for it. This is general government boards and commissions. It's increased on the open space line item by $5,000. Public safety boards and commissions. The Woodstock Emergency Medical, it's increased $3,575. Yeah.
On this open space, what page is that on? 'Cause I'm looking at page 17, general government boards and commissions, and I'm not seeing it.
It's because it's on,
It's on a different page.
yeah, I don't know, I don't have the budget right in front of me.
Okay, well, I'm just looking
It's
at,
actually page 17.
17.
Yeah, 17.
Yep, and if you go down, it's
Yeah.
highlighted in green.
There's two line items. One of them is open space land acquisition, the other one's open space professional services.
Okay.
Those both go to open space. Increase.
okay, thank you.
Other budget increases, the highway department. And the roads, dirt roads and roads line item, we put $45,204 more in that. Last year, that budget line item was $376,796. We upped that to $422,000. Just for an example, we did, the one major road project we did last year, and it's not done yet. It's Bradford Corner Road. That's about 1.2 miles of road, which we did drainage, paving, reclaimed the paving and repaved it and everything. And that project alone so far has cost us $490,693.50, and we're not done yet. So in a mile and a half of road, we can spend our whole roads and dirt roads budget just on one project. So we haven't increased that line item for a while, so that's the rationale behind that. Our snow and ice removal line item, we're asking for $15,000 more in that. So far this year alone, it's up over $18,000 over our budget so far this year. You know, you don't know from year to year. This is a particularly tough year. We haven't increased that in, I don't know, it's probably 4 or 5 years. So that's why we're increasing that. Obviously, we've spent a lot of money on snow and ice removal this year. Sure.
Can you distinguish snow and ice removal from the salaries and overtime?
Snow and ice removal is basically materials.
That's salt and sand.
Sand, salt, nitric chloride, cutting edges.
Weights, all weights, and all that.
So anything to do with snow and ice removal, right?
Right.
The transfer station hauling disposal fees has increased by $3,675. He's doing that in anticipation of a possible rate hike. The fees? Yes.
I'm just gonna wait for the
Oh, all right. Never mind, we'll come back.
All right. Public health, recreation, boards and commissions. Town beach line item is increased by $12,463. That's restoring it back to 2 years ago, which is a full budget. We had cut it in half last year. Libraries asked for an increase of $6,565 just to continue the services that they provide and increase costs on their part. All right, so this is just a picture of the combined budgets and how they break down. 76% of the budget, the total budget goes to education, 22% to the general government, and 2% to the redemption of debt. Capital improvements. Our 5-year total capital improvement program is $10,850,650. We have a number of projects on here. The first part of it's the roads that we're gonna be working on next. We have a phase 2 English neighborhood road that's $350,000 slated for that. And just with our chip sealing and that sort of thing and guardrails, $125,000, so there's $475,000 right there. And that, just for the roads. We have some bridge projects we're working on. We have our equipment that we're looking to replace along the way on there. We have, on the next page, some items for the transfer station and then some other general government projects. The big one on there is the roof project. And we have that in this fiscal year, which is $2,789,580. So that really drives up the capital costs in this particular year. Again, these aren't funded. These are what we see that we need as we go forward.
These are not funded?
These are not funded. The only thing funded on here is we'll be able to pay, we hope we'll have enough money to do the roads.
Some of the bridges.
Yeah, some of the bridges, we have some grant money.
Steep money.
We have some steep money and
And we do have money for the roof system at the
yes,
transfer station.
so we have those. So there's probably, maybe there's 500,000, a little more than that. $600,000 of that is funded. The rest of it's not.
So the truck
The trucks are in the budget.
and the excavators in the budget?
That's not in the budget. Only the truck.
So that $60,000 is the steep grant?
From,
You have,
Let me see.
isn't it more than?
Oh, yeah.
for the roof system?
Yes.
No,
No.
that's money we had put aside, CNR money, for that.
So that matches the grant? Is that
No, the steep's not a matching grant, that's just an outright grant. We have gotten $400,000 for that.
So that grant's not enough to pay all the roof?
It's not for that part of it, yeah.
But
it's
this
for-
is something different, a different,
Well, it all.
We had put
all
money
matches.
aside for that roof system, because DEP has mandated that. So we have some capital non-reoccurring money that, I think last year's board approved to go towards the roof system. We have enough money to do the whole roof system.
The rest of the grant money will go to the rest of that project. But we just don't show it on here because we have that money, so.
Any other questions, comments?
Go ahead.
Sure, go ahead.
All right, I was looking at the transfer station budget, I was looking at the hauling and disposal fees, that's page 27. I took a minute to go back into last year's budget, and I also looked at the transfers from the end of the fiscal 2013-2014 year. So we budgeted in 2013, 2014, $142,500, of which we transferred out at the end of the year, $51,086, which would mean that the hauling costs were $91,414. For 14-15, we budgeted $122,500, which is significantly more, but we've expended in 6 months $32,000. I'm struggling to reconcile that. I would think in 6 months we'd be spending half the money. And, I don't know, maybe you could shed some light on that.
I do know the boys at the transfer station have been doing a much better job. We're not spending as much on bulky waste since we've instituted new rules and regulations. I think we can attribute that, the drop in that, to that. Other than that, no.
Okay.
So this looks like, this looks like you've got at least a $30,000 pad in here, maybe 40.
Well,
I don't think that's the case.
Well, it was 91.
Well, how many days out are they in the billing?
No, I'm going back to
no, we still got,
13, 14. And
we
the
only
fact that in
did,
13,
what,
14,
58?
they pulled $51,000
Not
out
even,
of
just paid January.
$139,000
Right.
budget.
We have 6
Right,
months.
there's another 6 months to go on
this
the bill,
year.
on the
Right.
billing.
On this year, but yeah, it does look like they're.
Yeah, I understand, it could be running a month behind or something, but it doesn't look like
Yeah.
1/12
Sure.
less.
We should definitely look at
So
that.
Yeah,
we're doing a lot better job.
Yeah,
we-
we'll definitely.
that's what
look
I
at that.
attribute that to, Dave,
Yeah.
the change in the regulations and whatnot.
They're doing a much better job watching all the loads that come in.
Exactly.
Oh, they pick me apart.
They're not choosy, are they?
But I'm the one that hauls off all the leaves.
I'm just afraid, I mean, the hauling fees have been the same forever. I think Willie Waste is gonna hit
Well-
us. We do not have a current contract with them.
Well, I'm just pointing out what I
Sure.
see here.
No?
It looks like we've probably got about 30,000 more than we need, and that we're certainly running well under 50%
Right.
of what we budgeted. Throughout this document, when I looked at it, the 6-month expended totals don't equal even close to half. They're all well less than half of what's budgeted. I don't know if there's an error there.
They, excuse me?
Yes.
At the time when those were prepared, it was not an actual 6 months because we had to get them out by like a certain date, December 15th. So at that point, when it comes to the fall, sometimes they do run 2 months behind. It depends on when Winston gets
Well,
the invoice.
he's talking about every
I'm
budget.
talking about everywhere. As you
everywhere.
go through
But
this
it's
thing.
because we
What
run
we
up to
do
6
to,
months.
yeah, what we do to prepare those is on that date, we run a
Right.
report. And those totals are what our system tells us that they are.
And typically, you might like to think it's half and half, but it's not always that way. I think salaries you find are about half.
Actually, no.
Well, then it's not up to date in the numbers then.
Yeah, like I said, if it was 1/12, I could believe that your building is running
Yeah.
a month behind
think
from
it's-
its vendors and stuff.
Yeah, I think most of them are at least a month behind.
Did you take a look under the Board of Selectmen, on personal services, budgeted for 1450, 166,000, expended the first 6 months, and 1450, 70,000. Okay, it seems to be typical throughout every single one of the different departments. Okay, that's why I said, I don't, as far as the transfer station, I don't consider that a problem. All right, I'll leave that there.
Well, I can only review what I read.
Sure.
The words that are used here says it's 6 months.
Yeah.
As of 12/10, so,
Well, the transfer station one is obviously something goofy because,
yeah.
I mean,
It's a lot
32,000 is just.
Yeah, I think,
So far from
yeah.
50% that there's gotta be something missing.
They run about anywhere from 6,500 to 8,500 a month in hauling fees.
That still says that there's about $30,000 too much in that budget. It all jives going back like two years.
8,500 would be 102,000.
We did lower it, what, 2 years ago?
Yeah, we've lowered it over the years, but
Yeah.
might be not, probably not enough.
Alan, your department head salary increases 2.5% right down the line.
Yes,
Everyone.
everyone's 2.5%. 2.5% is actually what the union negotiated wages were for both Teamsters and ASTA, and we did the same with the ununionized employees. Non-union
Salaries.
Alan, I have a question. On the open space, in the PowerPoint, it shows that it's $5,000 more this year.
Yes.
But on page 17, if I'm reading it wrong, it looks like 14-15 was budgeted 15,000, and 15-16 was budgeted 10,000.
There's-
$5,000 less.
It's because there's two line items, Glenn.
Okay.
There's the Well, I think there's one of them's called, open space land acquisition, and one's they were only $20,000 this year, and last year and this year together, they're $25,000.
Okay. Okay, thank you, I see that now.
You're welcome.
And then on the salt and ice, what page is that on?
Under what?
Salt and ice?
It's, on the
Salt.
highway department
23.
budget,
23.
23, and that's towards the bottom one.
Okay. And you're saying that we're about 18,000 over the one?
Yes,
over
we
the-
were, as of today, we were $18,424,000.
That's gonna go up to
Yeah, and that's,
Over the 120.
probably
Yes.
be closer to 22,000 over.
it's been a rough year for that.
And I know salt's going up again next year. Salt did increase quite a bit last year. Went from 55 and change per ton to $77 a ton. And it's gonna go up, they're talking over $100 a ton next year.
Where do you get your salt from?
State bid, last year it was International Salt, this year it's Morton. And I believe Morton bought out International, so
Is it out of Vega?
they've got it wrapped up.
Comes out of
Ours
Providence.
comes out of Providence.
So I've been seeing ads in the Worcester paper saying, hey, we got plenty of salt down here in New Haven if you want
Yeah, for
There's
140 a
Yeah,
ton,
140 a ton.
plus you gotta pay trucking.
to. Yeah.
Yeah, we go with the state bid price, because it's supposedly the cheapest one, and that's.
Have you changed how you treat the roads with the?
We
The
have,
mixture? of-
actually, we've used more salt because DEP would like us to get away from using sand altogether. But, with close to 22 miles of dirt roads left, I can't do that. Plus, I think the sand helps hold the salt on the road, seems to work longer.
Does the salt contribute to the frost heaves more than the sand does?
I don't
Because it
think
seems
so.
like this, not here in Woodstock, but.
I think it was the severe, low temperatures. I don't think the salt or sand has much of a bearing on how much frost is heaving. We also use some liquid magnesium chloride, magic salt with, it's got molasses in it. So we pre-treat some of our own salt.
You know, the corrosive effects of that similar to calcium chloride?
They are, but they claim with the blending it with molasses holds it to the salt more, and they claim it's 70% less corrosive. We haven't found that. But it does help to have the salt work at a lower temperature. Rock salt works to around 17 degrees. Magnesium chloride, they claim, works to 25 below. I say maybe 0.
Well, you've done a good job with the roads.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Except for frost heaves.
Even our new road has heaves, or not, well, dips, right?
Yeah.
I got a question about open space professional services. That's gonna be page 17.
Uh-huh.
Again, I look at the transfer out at the end of 13-14. 13-14, it was budgeted $9,649. We transferred out nearly all of that, $9,154. Fiscal year 14-15, 6-month expended is 0. We budgeted 5,000, so that's 4,000 less than we, at least 4,000 less than we used the fiscal year before. And this year we're asking for 15,000, so it's an increase of 10,000. What is that? Why that important?
Well, what it's for, and it's changed actually, it's for whatever expenses that they incur when they're trying to purchase open space. You know, when they're trying to make acquisition happen. Well, they changed it, so now they need it to pay for appraisals of land, and they actually know they have at least 3 major parcels that are gonna need appraisal for this year, so they actually know that they're gonna use that money this year. In the past, they've asked us to transfer it, and we've asked to have it transferred to, they didn't do it last year, but they asked us to have it transferred at the end of the year to the open space, what's that fund there?
The acquisition fund.
The acquisition fund,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's what has happened in the past. So, but this year, they have plans to spend all that on appraisals for pieces of property that they're trying to acquire as open space rights to.
So last fall, it was transferred for the transfer station truck purpose.
Yeah, it just went into.
Yeah, and then we ended up moving it to English.
Yeah.
Wood Road
Correct.
Phase 2, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to add a few more details on the open space, that what the state has kind of switched its policy, and instead of asking the town to pony up 10 or 25% of the purchase price for these properties that we're interested in, now what they're doing is asking us just to pay for the, what Alan was saying, for the appraisals and for the surveys, which is a fraction of the amount of money that the town has in the past been asked to put out. And what we're getting in return are these parcels put under the program, the non-development program. So it's an incredible deal for the town. I'm on that committee, and this is a new, the tap opened, the feds opened the tap for this money this year. And so it's been really pouring in, and we are one of the prime areas in Connecticut for purchasing open space, agricultural open space, because it's still affordable. When the state looks at, Fairfield County and wants to buy agricultural land there, it's so much more expensive that it's prohibitive. So we are really in a good pipeline at this point. And so this switch in their policy, they have a new director, I guess. And so this new switch in the policy is going to be a boon for us. We have 3 active farm or parcels now that are close to being ready to purchase, and the state is doing this, and so it's a great deal for the town. And that's why we bumped up the administrative costs this year, because that really we needed to have that in there to pay for those surveys and the assessing, the appraisal stuff.
Is this through the State Department of Agriculture?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is, again, preserving agricultural use land.
So that explains when Don Alvetta came a few sessions ago, I think it was only $7,000 that he was at, and why that was such a small amount, was able to purchase that large.
It's just an unbelievable deal for the town.
If that's the case, does that mean in all future transactions of this type, the town does not have to kick in the larger amount of money?
I don't know.
No, it just means right now.
Right now. They're also, the state is doing something, in the governor's proposed budget, it actually sweeps away all kinds of funds. It's called the Community Investment Act or whatever, and it sweeps away
Half of it, isn't it?
half of it for this coming fiscal, the rest of this fiscal year, and then all the money in that for land acquisition, historic properties acquisition, and all that for the next year. So who knows what it's going to do in the future, but that's what is going on in this particular budget for us.
I mean, we're right now, we're primed to be able to, when some of these, if more parcels come up, and it's not in this exact program where we're only having to do the small amount of money, that we do have the funds to kick in to help purchase the development rights. So we're in really excellent shape at this point.
If I could change the subject from that one. Yeah. I have another question. What is the $15,000 for the tree warden.
Well, we
Does
have,
he actually remove the trees or just go around tagging ones that are unsafe?
well, the tree warden budget, what happens is, we put money in that budget, and then if there's any trees that we need to have somebody come in and take down, and usually it's in conjunction with the tree warden because they're dangerous trees, that money is used to take down the trees.
Okay.
So we don't pay a tree warden $15,000, no. We use that money.
But that's the account.
Exactly. We
detail.
use it to take down dangerous trees.
All right. I guess what I'd like to do is, I'm gonna ask you the same question you were there the last week that I asked Dr. Bannon. You were there, right, last Tuesday?
Yes, I was.
I guess I'm just trying to, when I look at this, I don't question any intent, but when I look at this, I'm thinking about the economic condition of, first of all, for Woodstock itself, looking forward. There's no grand list growth. I look at the state is preparing a budget that's $100 million short of being funded, and almost $1 billion short of being funded the next year after that. Housing's down, building's down. Our next opportunity for any type of major grand list growth is probably the rebound in 2016. And I'm thinking it's probably going to go in the wrong direction, but that's really, there's nothing going on. So I guess what I'm asking is, what is the long-term plan to be able to sustain increases every year?
They're actually, we don't really plan for an increase every year. I mean, it's kind of a fact of life. The long-term plan, when you run any kind of business in the town's business, some of your most expensive, the most expensive part of your operation are people resources. They cost you benefits, they cost you salaries and everything. It comes to a point where to sustain it, you might have to cut things. We have done in the past where we've gone part-time instead of full-time people. You have to look at things like that. It ends up costing jobs in the long run, probably.
It's something that you think about, I guess.
Oh, yes, it is all the time.
It's something else.
We had a plan to raise $135,000 for the town. It was not tax money. And the citizens of this community voted it down. So I was, one of my biggest disappointments of my 11 and a half years here. We had a chance to do that. I wish that you all had been at that meeting and to support it, because we could have, it might have passed. We lost by, 10 or 11 votes.
But you do have to think about personnel.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to point in that direction. I asked Dr. Barron that very same question, and I think in fairness,
And it is something that we look at, and we have plans, we look at that and we analyze that, and think about what we would have to do with less money.
Could I just comment to Mr. Efi? If you had gotten that money, would the plan have been to use it for general government expenses? I would have thought you'd use it for a capital.
It goes
item or
into
something.
it would have gone into the general fund, and it
Yeah.
would have been for the Board of Finance to decide what to do with it.
But it was non-property tax money.
Right.
Which, by the way, we are trying to pursue, by the way. We haven't given up on that. The Conservation Commission has been charged with going to all of the parcels that the town owns and trying to make arrangements to have those parcels logged in a eco-friendly way and get money from the logging operations on all of these parcels. There's 4 or 5 that actually have trees on them.
That's good. Right.
Kind of taken off on what Dave is saying, I just point out, if you look at salaries and overtime, and you look at it over the long haul, salaries in the Board of Selectmen page have a 7-year compounded annual growth rate of 3.5%. And I know there was 2 years in there with it too. If you look at the highway department, excuse me, the highway department, I gotta get the right page here.
Page 23.
No, I got them tabs, I can find them.
It's easy, you just gotta be able to read them.
You want to use my
it's-
glasses, Dave?
No, I just gotta find the right tab. You're looking at 5.8%. And the one thing that really got my attention is there's very obviously been an increase in staff, and there's been a significant increase in the overtime rate. So we've got more people working more overtime. And I'm not talking about like the last 2 months. I'm talking about across the year.
That overtime is mostly, and I think I'm right, it's all to do with snow and ice. It's snow and ice removal. It's not, we don't have overtime on a regular basis.
Yeah, but if you go back years, and I went back to 2008-9, coincidentally,
Yeah.
because it just happened to be the one that I had
Yeah.
handy, and you look at it, you
Yeah,
can
we
see
have
it
increased staff since then.
significantly.
Well, it's
And
not significant.
overtime.
What do we have?
We added one guy.
We added
Yeah.
one guy, yeah.
Well,
But
and
we've
one
also-
one guy, when you only get 10 people in a crew,
Yeah.
is, it's not like 1 in 100.
We've also been given added duties.
Yeah.
I know, but my point is I'm sort of taking off of what Dave was saying. You know,
It is.
you've got this situation where funding is pretty low,
Mhm.
and you got these increases that are going along,
Yeah.
that you're just gonna run your head into the wall.
Exactly.
In
You
fact,
come
I
to a
think
point where you have,
you're actually right about there now, because to get back to where the guidance was, you gotta cut $127,000. That was what the guidance was, and I say the same thing I said last week at the BOE meeting.
which we heard,
Yeah, I know you, you were sitting right there.
and I understand. where you're
It's,
coming
you know, the guidance was 0.
from. Right.
The budget comes in at $127,000. Well, this is almost about the same, in effect, as what the Board of Education did.
It's, yep, percentage-wise, it's about 1% less.
It's
yeah.
about the same.
Yeah.
So, you know, you've got some difficult work.
We do, you know, part of the budget is to show you our perceived needs, so, you know, that's why you saw some increases in some of those line items. Doesn't mean that we're gonna get them, will you realize that?
Well, you know, and I don't know about the board in general, but, you know, my view is that the Board of Finance shouldn't be deciding
Well,
exactly what money's gonna be spent with.
that's fine.
That's the board's.
You can give us a number. and
Well, we
that's-
did give you a number, 0.
And that's the number we've been given for the 8 years that I've done a budget too.
And it gets ignored every
And
year.
it
It's
was-
not ignoring it.
It's not ignoring.
I disagree with you, we're not ignoring it.
And I
We're
don't,
trying,
yeah.
excuse me, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think, you know, it didn't fall on deaf ears or anything, we understood, but we're also showing you, you know, we get asked certain things, so we're showing that too, and we'll put in the work to get it to that number, if that's what it really ends up being. And in the past, it hasn't ended up being 0. One year we came in at 0 and we were given money, it was only a small amount. But,
I remember that.
I mean, but we came in, so, you know, I don't know. You know, this is the way we chose to go on this route. You know, we weren't trying to offend anybody or ignore anybody, we just, if it is gonna be 0, that's what you'll end up seeing.
As a selectman, I have always felt that it's the duty of the Board of Selectmen to reflect back to the Board of Finance the actual needs or wants of the boards and commissions that we get budgets from, and the operation of the town. So that you all at least have some idea of, you know, in a perfect world, this is what we would like to have. Yes, we understand that you all, every year you want us to not increase it, but, you know, that's not possible. Unless we, you know, do lay people off or cut services or whatever you call for. We've done that in the past. but I think that it's the duty of the board to give you the information.
Yeah,
And
I
we'll
think
cut
it's
whatever we need
sort
to
of sends
cut,
a mixed
but-
message in the past when we have come into zero and it didn't end up zero, so, you know.
Oh, I agree, and it's boards has been, they're given a guidance of zero, come in with a number that you know you're not gonna get, and you're gonna get something better than zero. And it's worked every year. And in fact, that's why when we put out the note, I made the somewhat the facetious comment about, let's act seriously to the end of it, because
Yeah, and I guess that's why.
and it should be put in there, because, you know, if you do the same thing over and over and over again, it just doesn't happen.
What was the exact wording of the letter we put out? Is it you shall not turn in a budget above zero, or we recommend?
No, we recommend it.
So in fairness to the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Ed, it is exactly that. All we give is a guidance. We're giving them the latitude to use their discretion. We would prefer you come in zero, but use your discretion. So I don't think we can really crucify the first selectman, the second selectman, the third selectman, and the Board of Ed when our letter has, if we want them to come in with a zero budget, we have to start using shall, must, this kind of language. I don't think it's right that we harangue these boards and commissions for doing what they feel is right. Given the wording of the letter, we have to be fair about this.
I don't think that, I noticed you were looking at me.
Well, I'm looking at.
I don't think that anybody's haranguing anybody. I'm asking questions that I think that are important.
We are. We harangued the Board of Ed last week. We grilled Dr. Barron, and we told him, why did you ignore us? Why do you ignore us every year? Let's be consistent. If we want these boards and commissions to come back with absolutely zero, our letter needs to begin to start saying that.
I don't disagree with you on that point, George.
So, I mean, we have to communicate ourselves better, and if we need to be more frank about it, I move that we do that this next, well, I won't be with you the next budget season. Dale Grazius, thank you.
Well, I'm not trying to harangue somebody, because believe me, if I was, it'd be more severe than that. But, you know, we not only sent a letter, in January, we had a 3-board meeting.
Oh, I understand.
Everybody sat there and understood how much
But
money
that
was
letter
gonna
needs
be
too much
available.
leeway in it.
Well, I agree, but that meeting in January made it very clear how much money was gonna be available and how tight it was. And the thing that bothers me, and Cliff Davis told me it was a philosophical thing. For me, I've done budgets for more than 30 years. And to put together a plan that you know won't fly, to me, is a waste of time. If you put together a plan that meets what you know you're gonna do, and there's other stuff, then you can make the argument for the other stuff, and it's very clear as to what that other stuff is. When it's buried in something like this, then it becomes very much more difficult to see it. And if it is put separately, then the onus goes back on Board of Finance to say, okay, we've got these 6, 7, 8 items between 2 boards that they all feel strongly about. We've listened to the arguments for them. We've got to come up with a way to get some money. Which ones of these can we afford? How much can we afford? Where should the money go? Instead of saying, we got X amount of money, 70% goes this way, 74% goes that way, which is sort of the way it's been
Which
done.
is the way it's been going, so how would we know that that's what you're looking for?
Which isn't, well, that's why I'm explaining, I said it last week to the Board of Ed, I'm saying it again here. But I have a couple of other things, and some may actually help you a little bit, although it may not seem that way at the moment. I was looking at insurance, and I called, I checked with Karen about how many people were getting insurance.
Correct.
And so we got 15 people who were eligible.
Yes.
8 take the insurance,
Mhm.
and 7 waive it, and they get a stipend instead.
Correct.
Here's what kind of shocks me a little bit. Not actually shocked me a whole lot. It's costing us $25,000 for the 8 people who take insurance.
Mhm.
And 5,000 of that is to cover the deductible.
The high deductible.
So it's 20 and 5. The 7 people who waive the insurance get a stipend of $12,500. That is extremely high. And to give you an example of how high it is, if you're a 45-year-old person, and the only person you need to insure is just yourself, and you take the stipend, 1, you get $12,500. 2, you don't have to pay the $2,912 in weekly deductions. If you go to Access Healthcare and buy a gold plan and max it out in terms of
You're
using
talking
it,
about a single person?
single person, and this may explain why you have no employee-only participants, because they'd have to be insane to take it. You could buy a gold and cover the entire out-of-pocket under that plan for $8,800 if you're 45 years old. Except you get from the town $15,000 in benefit. You essentially get $7,000 in additional pay for waiving the insurance.
If you had a single person.
If you had a single person. You got 7 people who have waived it. If you waive it completely, then the only thing you gotta pay for is whatever the cost is for that added person on the spouse or whoever is covering. If you're a 64-year-old person, which would be the most expensive, and you did the same thing, you would make $2,000 by waiving the insurance. I'm just putting it in perspective. I also talked to Karen Monroe at the Board of Education. Board of Education has 111 people participating. It costs $14,200 per person. Their stipend for people who waive is between $1,000 and $2,200, which is more normal for that kind of thing. In fact, most companies won't pay anything. Some of them pay a few $100s, maybe $1,000, and I've been out of the business for a while, but that's what I would call. Why we haven't tried to combine these to get some benefit for the 8 people who take it, where we could save $10,000 per person for the 8 people, is a question. I mean, there ought to be some work, so some cooperation here to try to, because we're only talking 8 people.
We have tried it in the past.
Well, $80,000 is a heck of a lot of incentive. And on the stipend side of it, that's over the top, like $10,000. Times 7 people's another $70,000. We're talking about $150,000 of excess cost that's being put on the taxpayers just in health insurance. That could be removed, saved, however you want to put it. It'll take a little bit of effort, but it can be done. So I'll just throw that out there. The other thing is, since you're gonna have to redo this to get it at least resembling the guidance, on that transfer station, recycling, and I don't know if there are any others in here. If you look at the 13-14 expended, it shows $159,272. That's page 27, about 40% of the way down. What was actually budgeted that year was $142,500. No, this is 13-14. And what got transferred out of that 142,500 was $51,086.13. So we ought to get these things so they match, because, you know, especially like us, we're going through this in like 2 days.
I do have closer numbers to that. Karen's right, it's right around 8,000. Right around 8,000 a month, so, as of today, the hauling line item was at, we've spent 56,000.
Yeah, well, 8,000 a month is $96,000.
Yeah, so. there's-
Well, all I'm saying is these numbers need to reflect what's really there, because when you're looking at it, you don't know all the stuff you're looking across at this and saying, boy, that looks
Correct.
that looks
but
pretty good, but it isn't. It's the other way around.
Also, all the new regs were instituted, and we've been updating them. We updated them again this year. It's hard to know, I mean, this shows what we have spent to date, so we have a better look at it, but when we're budgeting for 6 months ahead, it's harder to say, well, I don't know what it's gonna be. I mean, this 6 month, the budget report here, 6 month expenditure, that's not true.
I understand that, John, but if you look at that page, the
Right.
159,000
Right.
is not 159,000. It's actually 91,000.
Oh, because of the transfer made it look
That's
like
right,
it was
because
higher
it should have
than-
been out of
Okay.
142,500,
I see.
and somehow it's not there. So when you look at this, and then you look at this year,
When they do the transfers, and we get to, the auditors had said we, instead of doing it line by line, we can put one amount into one line item. So when there was money left over last year, that particular amount went that one line item. We could have went through every single line item, you'd be doing transfers for a month, so.
no, but, and that's fine for the auditor when you're closing the
But
books.
then when you're looking at it
But
like
when
this,
you
you
look-
can't tell.
You can't tell.
Yeah, yeah.
I see it over a budget of
Yes, I see what you mean, yeah.
But, like you say, Dave, 13-14, the actual budget was 142,000. Last year, the actual budget was 122,000.
Right.
So we did drop it down, but we also redid the regs, so we didn't really know what it was gonna come out at.
No, I understand that, John.
Shouldn't John be
I'm not-
congratulated on
Yeah, but
implementing a
he's-
program that is actually reducing the cost?
He's just
Frank-
looking at what
frankly-
the report says.
Right.
He's trying to understand how it means. what it
The whole
means.
town ran away, the transfer station does. We'd all be happy people. They're almost a,
Poster child?
well, no, they're almost a profit center.
Almost.
It's been the goal of the last
These
11
numbers
years
just-
to make it
Yeah, it's
self-sustaining.
hard to really tell.
And we're close
when you're looking at that way.
having it that way.
I think it's been, since I was first got involved in that, 2003, John, I think we're hauling, the loads are probably twice as heavy as they were.
Right, right.
I mean, a lot of work that's been done for a long time, nobody's denying that history, and the
Yeah,
hard work
we've
that
got-
everybody's put into that.
Got a good crew up there, they're trying, so.
So between that and the insurance, you got $180,000 that's almost free, if you can do it.
I just wanna,
I just have a couple of comments. On the hauling disposal fees, how can we determine right now what the total tonnage is gonna be hauled during that 15-16 budget year. And how do we know what they're gonna charge us per ton for disposing of it? You can't, you have to take it as an educated guess. It's the same thing with snow removal. For many, many years, they said, they had a total of $80,000 for snow and ice. And you were always running behind. And, well, I told them that, take and put in a fair figure, and then they started doing that, and they were running pretty close, and now they're falling a little bit further behind. But, these things have to be, they're a guess. You have no way of knowing how much stuff you're gonna be throwing away, and how much you're gonna, haul out, or how many feet of snow you're gonna plow for storms every 3 days, okay? And then, just get back to the overtime bit. The town has done an excellent job in cutting down on the number of overtime hours. Several years ago, the overtime was a big problem, and the big push was put on there to cut down on the number of overtime hours. You take and go through this budget, you'll see how many places do not have any overtime for their staff. And the other thing is, I don't know if it's still in effect or not, but the highway department instituted a policy, instead of paying people overtime, they were giving them comp time, give them a day off in lieu of overtime, so that they wouldn't have to take and shell out the money. Well, that was a two-edged sword, because that means John would have that guy for 1 day less. And a lot of guys were working only 4 days a week and getting paid for 5, but they had put in the time, but it takes and screws up on his schedule and getting work done. So that was a two-edged sword. So I think the town has done a darn good job in managing your overtime and a lot of other things.
I don't disagree with you in principle, Dave. But some of these things are very difficult to predict. Like, for instance, how much snow we're gonna get. I mean, third week of January, it looked like it was gonna be a piece of cake. First day of the fourth week of January, it didn't get so good. But things like trash hauling and overtime, I mean, we can look back over time and see the trend line. And unless there's some event that's taking place that's gonna change it, we should be able to have a reasonable predictor. Does that mean you're always gonna be 100%? No. But you ought to be reasonably close. And, we got a town that's got virtually zero growth. We sort of want it to be that way, as we pointed out last week. It's a rural town that we want to stay rural, and we don't want a lot of development. Well, if that's what we want, and I think that's what in general the town wants, then people have got to look at some of these issues in that light. To expect bulky waste or metal or one of these other things to suddenly double in a town that's not changing that would be pretty strange. Same thing with these overtime issues. Yeah, there can be an issue where you get a lot of snow, okay. But if you look at it over 7 or 8 years, you should be able to see snow, not this. And that's what I think you gotta be looking at in light of what Dave in the middle was pointing out, is you got very little growth. You probably got negative growth in state funding, which we discussed at last week's meeting as well. It's getting to be a smaller and smaller percentage of spending. Property taxes keep growing. But you gotta look at all of those things to figure out where you're gonna get the money from.
John?
Just another note on the overtime. Budget printout today shows $31,173 left. That does not include last week's overtime, which everyone had around 11, 12 hours. That will come to somewhere between 10 and 11,000, leaving 20. So that's probably about 2 more weeks of overtime. So I think we're pretty close on the overtime, just so you know. And we do have 10 guys, 10 full-time guys, but we also have employed some part-time people to get the job done. So that's where we're at.
Problem,
Right.
because there isn't gonna be any money.
No, I understand
And-
that, but we're trying to get the job done, that's all, with whatever we got.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, it's important to note that, something you just talked about, is I ask questions, not necessarily critical. Someone puts a report in front of me and tells me to read it, mail it to my house, tells me it's my statutory responsibility, I'm gonna read it, and then I'm gonna look at numbers. That's what I do for a living, I look at numbers. So when I look at them and I see something that I can't reconcile, I owe it to you, being fair, to ask it. To not ask you would be unfair. So, I just want to point that out. This is no way an attack. It's just, I guess what we're probably looking for you to do is do the same great job you did last year with the same amount of money. Not do more with less. You know, at least that's my perspective.
Chan's over there. Chandler, is there anything you want to add?
Nope.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, just, again, as a reminder, we did suggest,
That's all of it.
recommend that,
That's all it was.
the budget come in, zero-based. In 2 weeks, we'll be having our, combined budgets and, revenues. At that time, we'll know exactly what funds are available, because between now and then, the information as it's being gathered will be going to the town attorney to make sure we know what is and is not allowable as an emergency expenses and covered under Prop 46. We're gonna have a lot of work to do come 2 weeks from tonight to get this budget in line to what we can afford this year based on the way the revenues look at this time. So, just a heads up.
Mike, are we expecting the Board of Ed and Board of Selectmen to come in with some adjustments to their budget on the 24th? Are we expecting them to come in with the same budget we just looked at?
I would say based on the comments that they got tonight, if they have a meeting between now and then, that they would maybe address some of those outstanding issues that were brought up, because they'll only be questioned again, I'm sure. I know as I announced at last week's meeting, the Board of Education has a budget forum this Thursday night, 7 o'clock, at the Woodstock Middle School, for anyone who cares to attend. I'll be there. But as I say, when it comes right down to it, there's going to be a bottom line that we're gonna have to meet, and we'll have to make a decision, as we have in the past, as to where the cuts are made or where the funds are allotted.
It's confusing as a member of the Board of Selectmen. It's confusing to me as to exactly what the wishes of the Board of Finance are. Are we supposed to come back with a 0 increase in the budget?
The letter requested that you try to maintain, it was suggested, recommended that you maintain a zero-based budget. And when we had the 3-board meeting, and we sat here all around the table and discussed it, we discussed at that time what the projected funding availability was going to be, and both boards were told at that time that they were going to have to make some serious adjustments to meet what was available. And any funding above and beyond what you received last year, we would like to have a thorough explanation as to why it was necessary. That is the outcome of that meeting 9 weeks ago tonight. Dave?
But we told the Board of Ed last Tuesday, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, to go back and come back with a zero increase budget.
And anything above that with an explanation as to why. To
That did not
justify-
happen.
Mr. Efi's question would be answered, that we want to be consistent with that direction we gave the Board of Ed, then the Board of Selectmen needs to come back with a budget.
That did not happen.
No, we told them that we wanted justification for anything above.
Did you not
the
get
zero.
that, though, both tonight and last meeting?
Pardon me?
Did you not get that, though, tonight and last meeting from both? Everyone that, every point of listing the increases and the reasons why, wasn't that?
Well, I don't think that some of the people were satisfied with the answers to some of the questions. They were just additions without some justification.
You may have asked for justification, but you didn't direct the Board of Ed to come back with a 0%.
I have to agree, I don't
Flat.
recall.
That did
No,
not happen.
Not to come back with a zero, but to come back with justification for anything above and beyond the zero. That was their charge. And basically, again, it's the same thing, because this is gonna have to go before the taxpayers, so you're gonna have to have a suitable answer for any questions that might arise as to the increases. And we're telling the Board of Selectmen basically the same thing. We're not telling you to come back with a zero budget. That was a recommendation and a request, but it wasn't an order. And we asked for a full explanation for anything above and beyond that. And that's what we continue to ask for.
I think as long as we're not absolutely clear as to what they're supposed to plan to, then what we're gonna get is exactly what we got.
Exactly.
And
That's what I
You
was
gotta
saying.
say, if you want a zero budget, then they gotta come back with a zero increase budget. And those additional items above that zero plan that you think absolutely need to have, and an explanation for each one of those. Because otherwise, what you get is
I didn't say an explanation, Dave. I said a justification.
a justification, explanation, whatever you'd like. What you're gonna get is 20-some odd pages with stuff here, there, and everywhere that there's just no way you can make heads or tails of. I mean, if you're gonna have a plan, the plan has gotta have a base plan, and then there's gotta be this list of things that I really need. And here's why I really need them, and here's what they're gonna cost. So that, you know, the 6 people who have the votes here can say, you know, those 5 items, or 4 items, or whatever the number is, are things that we really need to find a way to fund, and we're gonna take the money that we got, and we're gonna use it to do that. Otherwise, you're gonna get this again.
Well, unfortunately, that's the point we're at right now. And between the two budgets, we're looking at $700,000, over $700,000. And we all know that that's not going to be available.
So, there needs to be like an
I
80%
believe
cut.
in one of those meetings that we had sitting around the table with the three boys, that it was pointed out to them that you can ask whatever you want, but there's only so much money. And it doesn't make any difference what you want or what we can afford to fit into the amount of money we're gonna be able to allocate. And that's the whole bottom line, right there. Proposition 46 says you can only spend so much money. And if you take them to, it's gonna go over what's allowed to be spent by Proposition 46, it ain't gonna fly. Simple as that.
But is it a given that whatever amount is available under Prop 46 cap will be given out?
No.
That's
Well,
not, that's
we
not.
need to
a
make
given.
sure everybody understands that too.
Well,
That is a discussion that we'll have.
That
That's a discussion
That's what
that
this
we
board
have
has
to
to
have.
decide.
That's
So what
we
David's
have.
saying is that anything over zero, we may have $123,000, but you need to justify
No, I'm with you, Glenn. I wanna make sure that the people in the audience,
how much for that.
I'm not so sure, because I wanted to make sure it was actually came out and said aloud.
We
So,
will have to decide what are we going to do with that $123,000.
Yes.
Are we gonna
If
go up
there
to
is
that or
any.
not? Pardon?
If there is any, $123,000.
I thought we know that the grand list has gone up by that amount. But Donna gave us those numbers some time ago.
We haven't got
We haven't got.
all the
Okay.
figures yet. As I just said before, those figures are all being compiled, finalized now, and they'll be going to the
Right.
attorney.
Right.
And the number that we have in 2 weeks will be the number we have to work with.
And of course, we always still have the waiting game with Hartford to find out what's
Well,
gonna happen.
that's,
that won't happen until
That's
after.
right.
Exactly.
that's not gonna happen until long after our budget's in place one way or the
Right,
other.
our budget will be in place.
But it could have a negative impact on it.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
So to try to give the board direction, wouldn't it be sensible to say, first you have to have a budget that meets all your minimum needs and doesn't exceed your current budget? Then above and beyond,
Why? It's up to them to take and spend the money that we give them wisely. That's it. We have no control on how the Board of Education spends their money.
I wasn't even talking about board then, I'm talking about either board, so that
Well,
they come in with well, let me finish my thought. So they come in with their budget, at zero, and then, as you said, they have these other items over here. If we can't fund them, they at least have their budget intact, their primary budget. They don't have to go back to the drawing board. That's what I'm saying.
That's the way you would normally do a plan. You know, if you're in business and you're in the business of doing plans, you do that. And then you look at what you're gonna add to it. You don't come in with something that has a 30% increase in sales and, 14% increase in gross margin, and put together a plan, and then at the last minute say, oh, wait a minute, I was just kidding. It's not gonna happen. It's a waste of everybody's time. I got one last thing that's sort of related to this, and it came up with having to do with the trees and stuff. One of the things that I think the town in general, including Board of Finance, has done a very poor job of over the last couple of years is communicating to the public. Whether it's cutting trees or budgets or whatever it is. I mean, you see virtually nothing in the papers, nothing. I think you guys, this Mike and the other Mike that's not here, and Alan and whoever, I mean, you guys gotta do something to get more of this out into the public so that they're aware of what's going on, because you're not gonna build support, surprisingly. It takes some time and some salesmanship.
Support of what,
Okay.
Kate?
Well, whatever it is, if you want the harvesting of the trees, letting people know that that's what that we're looking at. And it's gonna mean money to the town and things like that, instead of a town meeting that very few people knew about. That's why nobody showed up. If that was in the paper and it had been talked about for 3 weeks ahead of time, and how this could benefit the town, some people might have said, geez, maybe it's important for me to get over there, because, hey, this is a pretty good deal. Well, the budget, the budget can't be whatever day it is, May 7th, or whatever the day of the referendum is. People can't learn about it a week ahead of time and then be prepared to support things. And this year, we got the roof project on top of it. That all has to get out in front of people so they know what's going on. They have a reason to feel good about it. They have a good reason to feel good about the plans that they pulled together, and they're supporting them.
By having
Not
Prop
being surprised.
46 in place that has effectively killed most of the interest of the citizens of this town for the past 25 years.
That's bull.
It's not bull.
It is.
I've lived here
And
this
in
long.
fact, if you
Could I
look at
speak
the budgets, you'll
before
see
you-
that most of
before
them
you
weren't at Prop
interrupt me?
46.
Could I finish my thought?
Sure.
All right, that's, move on. Any other comments before we move on to the next item? All right, next item will be old business. Anything more on the bylaws there, Glenn? No.
We'll wait for after the budget season is over.
All right, that sounds good. We also have under the matching funds for Camp Nahako, it was asked by Donna that we take a vote to move that money from being assigned for the Camp Nahako project at this time, because it probably isn't gonna get spent before the end of the budget season, for bookkeeping purposes, to move that to the capital non-recurring undesignated. If we do need it for Nahako before the end of the budget year, or for something else, it'll be there that we can bring it back up, but for bookkeeping purposes, I'd like to get it moved to the capital non-recurring.
There's no way that we can set that aside for Camp Nahako for future years.
It makes a mess of the books if you just leave that open out there. It's been sitting there, so, like I said, if it goes into, yes, if it goes into the capital non-recurring unassigned, and something else should come up, then we don't have to play a game, we can just take it, use it for that. But if the occasion arises that something happens with Nahako, it's still there.
I move that we set aside those funds in capital non-recurring account
As undesignated.
as undesignated.
Second.
Any discussion on that?
Mike, how much is the balance gonna be in that?
That would make the balance with that $10,000, that balance, Don said would be roughly $47,000 in that account. Okay. Any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. New business. Anybody have any new business? Okay. Citizens participation. What?
Nothing for me.
Okay. All right, citizens participation. Anybody?
I actually have something, oh, go ahead, Norman.
I'm not speaking as a Board of Ed member right now, I'm just speaking as a resident. I came down tonight primarily because I wanted to see what was going to be happening with the town beach and the libraries. And I know right now the selectmen have included funding for both. And I've sat through last week's discussion, the discussion a few months ago, and the discussion tonight. And while I certainly have heard, I appreciate that they have budgeted to restore the town beach, so it's actually a functional beach for residents. And that the libraries would be receiving, or at least proposed to receive, a contribution this year as well. And I did have a quick question, just for clarification for myself. The Woodstock emergency line item on page 22, is that for the ambulance service in town?
Yes.
Okay. And the Fire Protection Association on page 20, is that the town's contribution to the 3 volunteer fire departments?
Yes.
Thank you.
Dick?
Speaking about the town beach, it should be noted that last year, they got a greater increase than they're asking for this year, and they cut the amount of funding to the town beach. They're just restoring it back to what it was the previous year.
Yes,
So
and
there's no guarantee that's gonna make the cut. It may be on the bubble right now.
No, I understand that, but I mean, it was,
24
there's not much,
to 12.
there's not much in the way of outside of basic services in this town, as far as, there's really not. You have the planning, fire, roads, that sort of stuff. That was one of the things that families could do in the summer without having to pay.
I couldn't agree more.
So I mean, it
I'm
was,
just letting you know,
Yeah.
I think it should be there too. That last year, the Board of Selectmen got an increase far greater than they're asking for this year, and they cut that line item from 24 to 12, I believe. I can look it up. If you guys got a minute?
No, that's what it was.
no, I.
24 to 12, and this year, they're just gonna put it back at 24. I hope it stays in.
I do as well, and I'll make sure I bring that up to the Board of Selectmen as well, but I wanted to bring it up here tonight since you're reviewing the general
Yep.
government budget. And just as again, as a resident, I know that, like, I can't remember which one of you said it, to meet all the minimum needs and not exceed the the current budget, I mean, I think we all pretty much know that it's not possible to meet all the needs, because if we were meeting all the needs, then the boards wouldn't be asking for an increase.
Actually, it was me, I believe, and I said the
Yeah.
minimum needs.
Yep.
And what I'm saying is, if you come in next week with a budget where you
2 weeks.
2 weeks, sorry. If you were to come in with a budget where you say, well, I'm gonna come in, the board decides that we're not gonna distribute any of the money, or you're only gonna get 50,000, you're gonna have to go back and have a series of meetings where you pick that budget apart gently, surgically, and remove the money. And it was my suggestion, it would save time. That you start with your baseline budget, which is at 0 increase over last year. And over here, you have your list of items that you think you need increases for, and then you get your salesman shoes and hat on and explain to everybody why it's so important. And if you sell the group, then maybe some of those monies, not necessarily all of them, will be granted. I was looking at it from a time-saving perspective. That was my thought. Maybe I didn't express it that way, but that's what I was trying to get across.
Thank you.
I have one comment for you.
So, I'm gonna try to say this in the most respectful way that I can, so bear with me. There are 3 boards in play here: the finance and the education and the Board of Selectmen. We all do have different jobs to do. And what I'm hearing is only a few of all of you collectively have in some ways changed the rules a little bit about how this annual dance is done. I mean, typically, yes, we get the warning letter that there's not going to be a lot of money, but none of you actually do know at this time yet how much money, if any, there will be, how much, and how you will divide it, which is the same thing that we do every single year. So to be chastised, really, both selectmen and education, about our approach to presenting a budget, which is exactly the same as it's been done for as long as I can remember, which is, here's what we think we need, here's the increases, here's the decreases, and then you guys end up telling us what number we need to hit, which is exactly what Cliff said last week. And then the 2 independent boards, independent of you guys, make their decisions about where this money needs to go. I'm feeling a little bit like the rules have been changed and now we're supposed to like drop everything and produce something. And let me tell you, meeting right now to try to change what has already been presented and a significant amount of time has been put into for both entities is significant. And everybody in both of those entities also understand that at the point that we have the real number, that we're going to have to sit down and figure this out. To lay someone off or to cut a program significantly to get to not a real number still at this stage of the game is really unfair and not reasonable. Why would you tell someone they no longer have a job because we have to get to a 0 when, oh, actually we don't, because there actually will be a little money that you guys are going to see fit or not see fit to give the board? I don't understand why the rules have suddenly changed about how this process is supposed to go.
Well, these rules have not changed. A lot of the rules are governed by state statute. We have to have certain meetings.
For sure.
Presented to us at certain times of the year.
Yeah.
So that's what we have to go by. So those rules have not changed.
No, I don't mean that. I
Okay,
mean
what
like
I'm
come in at the
saying-
0 and
what
then
I'm
add to
saying,
it.
We are governed by Proposition 46.
Sure.
And we have a very good idea at the beginning of the budget season what Proposition 46 is going to allow.
Yep.
And that's the figure that we give to you people to try to hit.
Yeah.
But when you miss it by $700,000, you got a problem.
Collectively, yes, we did. I mean, but
Okay.
everybody knows that.
So why do you bother putting in that higher amount? Because you know you're not gonna get it.
I guess we disagree on the fact that both boards put something together that was really pie in the sky here. You really think that that's, I mean, I've seen those budgets come out. I don't see it this year.
Nothing has changed in the past 12 years that I've been on the board. It's always been the same.
But
Okay?
presenting a 0 and adding is a different model.
That's just my personal thought. I
Right.
agree with the board. I don't know about that, that's a rule change. I'm trying to save you time.
But Dave agrees, and it sounds like there's a little bit of support for that, but that isn't what was articulated to the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, but reality is, even if it's $200,000 for the Prop 46, which I doubt it's going to be,
Right.
that's as much as we have.
Oh, I
to
know,
give,
it's the
you
way
know,
it's always been.
and I think that's the frustration, is that we'd like, you know, I don't mind, I really enjoy hearing, or think we need to hear what we need. But with Prop 46, we can't do it.
I know, it's always been that way.
So, I think what the Daves are saying is that we need to have budgets that are more realistic of what we can actually do.
But if both of the boards can hit that number, then what's the difference? I don't get it.
A recommendation would be
They'd
to
like to get it
take,
up front rather than 3 weeks.
a recommendation to follow would be to take and build your budget based on the amount of money you had to spend for last year, and then have another list of priorities that you would take and spend the money on if you were to get another $100,000. Okay?
Yeah, but I think that's what we did.
But
That's why I'm not
not
getting it.
$700,000.
Okay.
That's what I'm
I mean,
saying.
it's being realistic. The way these budgets are being presented, particularly the Board of Ed budget is being presented is completely unrealistic.
It was 4.69 times what we thought we might have available, and then we add the Board of Selectmen, it's 5.5 times. And I'm saying not to rub anybody wrong with this, or put anybody down, that's not the reason. I'm just looking at the numbers, that's what the numbers say.
Or it could be the difference of showing people actually what it looks like in the budget ahead of time, and versus having a running list, a really tally list along the side at 0%. But if we get this much, we can put this back in, and doing it that way. Is it doing the work on the back end or doing the work on the front end? I don't think either board has not thought about this before.
Yeah, what bothers me, and I said this last week, is both boards spend literally months pulling these budgets together. I know the Board of Ed starts in December. They spent December, January, February, getting this detailed budget put together. And then, in 2 weeks, they have to completely rip it apart and remove, and, you know, this year they'll have to pull out $500 and some odd thousand. Last year, they had to pull out
700.
$700 and some odd thousand. All I was saying is, and I've only done this like a lot of times, put the plan together realistically, and like you just said, have these other items. You got 3 months to put that together. You know that's pretty close to where you're gonna end up anyway. Aren't the kids better off with a plan that was put together to use the money they know they're gonna have, provide the best education they can with the money that they're gonna have, and then maybe we can add some things. It's better than a 2-week crash throwing budget.
You know, this will be my first real budget cycle instead of being a resident following it from the Board of Ed. But although it seemed hairy last year, I didn't get the impression that anybody on the Board of Ed really had no idea where they were gonna pull the $700,000 from. I mean, and again, I was not part of that
That would be true.
process, but from being a citizen and going to all their finance committee meetings and the Board of Ed meetings and going through that way. And, I mean, I don't think we're blind to the fact this year either.
You know, I just wanted to comment that if you do it the way we're talking about right now, if it was done the way we're talking about, the time could be taken to look to realize little savings throughout the whole budget, realize savings. It would be productive. The way we're doing it now is actually counterproductive, in my personal opinion, because at the end of the day, you guys are gonna have to go in the 11th hour with a hatchet. You're not gonna have the time to do the research, to go look for other vendors, to
I
look for
think that's
cost
an
savings
assumption
on
that you're
this or
making,
that.
though, that isn't true.
You'll have the time?
That the time is already being spent on that now. It just wasn't presented, but that's a
If-
consideration that both boards made.
If,
So now we wasted everybody's time.
That's That's the way it's been done.
With all due respect, if that was done, then you will be having massive layoffs and personnel changes beginning in next year. And I don't believe it'll be that massive at the end of the day. There'll be things that'll be found. I don't mean you personally, but that'll be found by the Board of Ed that's gonna bring that number down.
Well, the Board of Selectmen as well, I mean. if
Yeah,
you're talking about
absolutely,
that,
absolutely. I don't
really,
wanna single anybody out.
If it's 75-25, the way it was talked about last week, then the Board of Selectmen have a hell of a project ahead of them with just their minimal, my opinion, minimal budget increase proposal.
We gave them $180,000 they can cut without doing anything.
I understand that, but can you merge insurances and talk to unions in 2 weeks?
No, but you got till the 1st of July to do it.
I don't have any experience.
And it
with
would have
that
been
stuff,
even better if they had started last December, when they started putting this thing together, saying, wow, you know what? We're paying $25,000 a person for insurance, and the Board of Ed is only paying $14,000. Now, I found out about this yesterday morning. I learned about
So
that.
didn't know that.
By 4 o'clock this afternoon, I had all the rest of that information, and I didn't spend 2 days doing it. I spent a couple hours here and a couple hours there. Gee, the Board of Selectmen couldn't have done that over the
That's
course of
another assumption that you're
3
making, that
months?
that wasn't done.
Well, if it was done,
Yes.
and they knew that they could buy insurance by combining the groups for $14,000, and we're spending $25,000 a person for insurance, then somebody was derelict in their duty, because that's
That's not what I'm saying.
$80,000 of taxpayer money that was being spent for no reason.
That has been looked into in the past and the problem
Many
with
times.
unions. Union contracts.
It's more complicated
How
than
do
it
they pay the
seems.
administrators at the Board of Education? They got insurance. All of the non-union people on the Board of Education side, they have insurance. They participate in the same program that the unions participate in, so it can be done. It's just you gotta put a little effort into doing it.
Yeah, you get different unions down there.
The administrators aren't the union.
That's only a couple of people.
They got insurance through that same group. It's the same insurance group. We're talking about 8 people. We're not talking about bringing in 50. We're talking about 8 people.
You know,
That could have been done.
Are those union people, the 8 that you're talking about, they're like,
A mix.
like the town clerk, right? I mean, are you guys in a union? I mean, is that?
There's 2 unions for the town hall,
Okay,
but the group is very small, which is not attractive.
right.
So there's some fundamental assumptions that are being made that are not correct.
So do you know, I mean, what were the problems before with merging with the Board of Ed? Do you know? Do you
For
know?
one, we're not an attractive group, we're small. We're very small.
Right, but just to add in.
Also, the age.
There's no interest from the education side to merge with us. They have they're funded differently than we are. There's some things that, I mean, I really don't want to speak to it, although I
Right.
do know quite a bit about it. There's some assumptions being made that are not correct.
When it was looked into in the past, it was quite a difference in age of the people in 2 different organizations or groups.
It's not a new idea.
You know, but if we could show that it could save the town money, maybe
That would be something that we
The
would.
people in the education
encourage.
side are not interested in saving the town money.
maybe,
Simple as
well, I
that.
don't believe that.
I do. They're not interested. They're out there, they're just for themselves.
Well, they may be
Okay.
interested in having more money to spend on something else, which is what Davis really said. You save the money here, you can put it towards something else. I would think that we're all interested in that.
The way what they have demonstrated to me is they're only interested in getting their paycheck, and that's it. They're not interested in helping out their fellow union members. If it's gonna make a difference in them not getting a full paycheck.
Any other citizen comments?
This is actually a pretty good discussion.
Yeah.
I think.
But,
Well, thinking about what Glenn was just saying, I think there should be a lot more communication between the 2 boards. There should be cost savings that can be realized somehow. because of the scale of purchases,
Obviously.
but with the schools versus the town hall, we should be able to save some money one way or the other, maybe we, I could come up with some guesses right now.
There
I
are
mean,
some things that we have been able to collaborate on and save money.
And that would be
There
great.
is a mutual interest in that.
That's right, and I think one of the points, I'm not taking a position on, it, at least not this minute, but we are spending $12,500 on a stipend for people to not take a benefit. That would seem to be an area that shouldn't, it's a tough choice, but it seemed like an area that could be.
We're not the only town that does that.
Huh?
We're not the only town that.
Well, it doesn't matter, we could be in good company going broke, you know? It's tough to say.
$12,500 is just such a ridiculous amount of money. Like I
Per
said,
person thing?
Yeah.
per person,
That's, other
Yeah,
towns
go
do
ahead,
it,
use the
not
first one.
it's 1,000 or 2,000. I must have on my chair when I heard that.
And that should be taxable, so that means that there's an FICA, right? It's
So that's what he's saying, it's really worth $15,000.
Well, it's 13.7 or something.
Actually, see, if you're in the insurance program, you also got to pay a weekly deductible, because the people who participate pay on an average, I think, $56 a week or something like that. So that's $2,900 a year. Now that's pre-tax kind of money. So if you're not in the program, you don't have to pay that. You get $12,500. So you get essentially $15,500 of extra income. You could take that money, like I said, go out to Access Healthcare and buy the best plan available. If you're 45 years old, you could put $7,000 in your pocket. You would have to be insane to take the town insurance, which is why you're not incenting anybody. You're paying them not to. It's crazy. Even if you were 64 years old, you make $2,000 by not taking the insurance. What a deal.
But the cost to the town is still 12,500 plus 6.2 is 13,275 times, what is it, 8?
7.
Sorry, 7. It's $92,929 that you spend to ask people, or to reward them for not taking insurance. I mean, there's not gonna be any easy decisions.
Anyone else? Any other comments?
Yep. We're good? Okay.
All right, just a reminder again that in 2 weeks we'll be having our combined budgets and revenue meeting. And we'll be making some hard decisions at that time.
Is that date? You have that date? Ian?
Yeah, it's March 24th.
Thank you.
Motion adjourned?
Have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?